Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and I'm just going to outright and say it. There are too many bad Warhammer video games. For context, I'm not going to talk about every single Warhammer game ever released because this would be an easily 10-hour video, but we're going to talk about some specifics as to why this happens. You see, every year there is a barrage of Warhammer video games being released into the general public from a number of different studios. This could be from RTS games to strategy games to pretty much anything that you can imagine. Yes, Warhammer pretty much covers everything when it comes to video games. Well, we don't have a cooking simulator or a dating sim just yet, but I imagine that that's crossed their mind at one point. So why do we have so many Warhammer video games being released pretty much every single year? And the answer is rather simple, it's cross-promotion. What better way to promote the Warhammer hobby, all the miniatures and so on, than video games, which is the most accessible form of media at this point. If a game does well, it'll get people into the tabletop, well, that's what they're hoping at the very least, but I know that that system works because I know many people who've got into Warhammer hobby after playing, say for example, Dawn of War 1, Dawn of War 2, Fire Warrior, yes, even that game, and loads of other decent Warhammer games. Keep in mind that yes, Fire Warrior was bad, but it was much better than a lot of others that we're getting in more recent times. So if cross-promotion works so well, why is it that we get so many bad Warhammer games being released throughout the years? And the answer is rather simple. It seems that it's very easy to get a Warhammer license when it comes to creating a video game. This is why we get all these random and yet unknown developers, those who might have never released a project before or have released very subpar projects in the past, getting a Warhammer license. Honestly, it's rather confusing considering that Games Workshop is extremely protective of their product and their IP. Despite the fact that yes, their IP is not really original, they do defend it as much as they can and will attempt to shut down pretty much anything that tries to threaten it, which, you know, fair enough, this is how companies work. I'm not saying I'm defending them, but that's how they do it. Now obviously there are some very good Warhammer games out there like Blood Bowl 2, Vermintide 2, Dawn of War 1 is still hailed as one of the best Warhammer video games to ever release, Space Marine and a few more, but the grand majority of them, well, they lack. That's honestly the best way to say it because, well, some of them could have been really good, but a lot of these developers grab the Warhammer title because Warhammer sells. It doesn't matter if the game is good or not, it's going to sell because Warhammer fans will likely buy anything with a Warhammer name on it. Be against that phrase all you want, but you know it's true because many of us just are obsessed with the franchise and we want to get as much as possible from it. We want TV shows, we want books, we want, well, video games, we want games that are good, and we give the benefit of the doubt to a lot of developers. And since the Warhammer name is so popular, developers will take advantage of that, and let's just list a few examples of those games. Eternal Crusade is one to talk about, mainly because the developers promised us everything and gave us garbage. They outright lied multiple times because they kept saying stuff which sounded amazing and crowdfunded for it too. Keep in mind that they took a lot of people's money, yet nothing. We got nothing of what they gave us. We ended up just getting a basic shooter game, which was just crap. That's all I'm going to say. Crap. From this massive style game where players would be able to form armies of other players and just fight against other factions, we essentially just got Warhammer Counter-Strike. And that was not even Counter-Strike level. So yeah, it was just bad. The developers kept promising and promising stuff and nothing came out of it. In fact, the game is officially dead now, and yeah, that's all I can really say about this game because, well, really we should have all seen the red flags considering that the most recent titles around that time from this developer were iOS games. So how they managed to convince themselves and us that they were going to make something absolutely massive is beyond my comprehension in all honesty. Then we've got Dawn of War 3, which was purely fueled by greed. For context, Dawn of War 1 was an absolutely amazing RTS game. Dawn of War 2 wasn't too bad either, despite having quite a radical change of gameplay. But Dawn of War 3, that was the developers going, hey look, mobbers are popular, let's just do that. That's what people want. No, that's not what Warhammer fans want. They looked at what was popular by the general term and then decided to do that, which is absolutely baffling. They killed one of the most beloved franchises, all because of silly greed, when if they would have just made a flat-out sequel, then they would have made a lot of money and the player base would have been very happy and we would have probably been at Dawn of War 4 at this time, or at least gotten a load of DLC for Dawn of War 3. Now admittedly those are older titles, but they are still fairly recent. So let's talk about a more recent title with Necromunda Underhive Wars. This was a game that I was very excited about, mostly because I loved Mordheim. Yes, Mordheim had its own issues, but it was still one of my all-time favorite games, and I had hoped that the developers had learned from Mordheim when moving forward to Necromunda. A lot of people love the setting of Necromunda because it's dark, it's gritty, and it's something that we already knew from the tabletop. They literally just had to transcribe the tabletop into this game like they did with Mordheim. But what was the result? Well, the developers learned nothing from Mordheim. None of the quality of life stuff in Mordheim made it to Necromunda despite being the same format of game. The AI was tuned to be even worse, with some cases just not firing or just not acting in general, or running into walls for like 5 minutes whilst you basically just twiddle your thumbs. And the game was in a broken state for a majority amount of time. There were some patches, but the patches didn't really fix anything. In fact, patches only came out because DLC was coming out shortly after, and we got a decent amount of DLC. The game did get a little bit better, but ultimately, just like Mordheim, yes, this happened to Mordheim too, the game was abandoned not long after release. I think right after a year or right before a full calendar year since the game got officially released. It's ridiculous that this happens, because this happens often. Warhammer games are released and then that's it, they're abandoned. Now, I'm not saying that all Warhammer games that launch in a bad state are inherently bad and never get better. Necromunda Hired Gun is a perfect example of this. It was decent in early access, I was having a lot of fun. Then, on release, I don't know why, the patch just kinda killed the game. But time has progressed, and yes, they have been releasing some form of DLC, but they've been patching the game to make it better, and I applaud the developers for that because they're actively trying to make the game as good as possible. For those who haven't played it, it's a Warhammer-based shooter, and it is pretty decent. It's not exactly what everyone was imagining, but it's essentially Warhammer Doom. We've seen this happen with other titles too, like for example Total War Warhammer 2, which did release in a bit of a sorry state, but did get better over time, and yeah, that's a good thing. Expecting every release to be perfect at this point is kind of difficult because it's not just Warhammer games, it's just gaming in general. I don't know what's happening with developers lately, but they're just releasing subpar projects and fixing that with time. I'm not justifying it, I dislike it, because if I'm going to spend my money, I want to spend my money on something that works, but if it's going to get fixed, at least there's a silver lining. I can wait and then wait for it to get better, which is a really weird way of saying things because maybe I'm just an optimist, and I shouldn't be, I know I shouldn't be, but I try to find the best of the situation unless everything just looks outright dead. So now that we've discussed all this, there's a few things to talk about. Again, the question, why are there so many bad Warhammer games? Simple, money. Various different studio developers know that the Warhammer name will be easy sales for them. Many of these studios will claim, oh, we love Warhammer, we've loved Warhammer since we were kids, blah 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 blah. No, not the case. It's just they love money. And yeah, you know, fair enough. It's capitalism, that's how it works. But rest assured that they don't love Warhammer, because if they did, you would see them talking about rules, you'll see them talking about this and that. It's very easy to tell what's a cash grab and what isn't. Say, for example, Battle Sector. These guys love Warhammer. It's very easy to tell when it comes to the intro cinematic how masterfully it was done to teach people about the Blood Angels, and then when they started talking about the Necron DLC that they're working on, they were using the models, the actual miniatures as reference. This is something really, really cool because it shows that these are Warhammer fans that want to make a good Warhammer game. And I'm not saying that they're doing this for the love of the hobby and not money, because, well, they'd be freaking stupid if they just did it for the love of the hobby, but it's very easy to tell the difference between studios that want to make money and those who want to make a good Warhammer game because they know it's going to make them more money in the long run. That's the main thing. A long-running game is guaranteed to make more money in the long run, and it's better supported and all that, whereas a short-running game is, give me your money, I'm gonna go and do something else now. But now we get to the fun part of the video, which is who's to blame here, and, well, it's very difficult to answer. A lot of people will blame Games Workshop for obvious reasons. They own the IP, they decide who it goes to, and so on, but let's talk about this in a realistic state. Keep in mind that I'm not defending Games Workshop, I'm just a realist here. In some cases, Games Workshop is at fault because they pretty much allow for anyone to get the license. That's worked out in a lot of cases because some smaller studios have been able to pick up the license and just make a good game. It's just how it works. However, it's so easy that anyone can pick it up and they can just go for the cash grab. We've seen that once more with pretty much every year. Also, there's the legalities here. So if they sign a contract with a company, they're pretty much bound to it unless there's some clause, which we've seen happen before. So They can't really stop the game from being made in some cases. I imagine that they've got some clause for it, but some studios can outright lie, say, yeah, development's going well, and then just nothing happens. However, it does make me question as to what Games Workshop actually do once the license has been granted to another company. Do they keep constant eye on it, or do they just let them do their own thing? Because it does hurt the brand. It does hurt the brand. They do need to be a bit more restrictive, and I'm not saying just focus on AAA companies, because smaller studios do deserve a lot of a push here. Smaller studios can do great games. But what they do have to do is actively start blacklisting companies that keep producing garbage. Because, yeah, it happens. I don't want another Mordheim or another Necromunda if it's just going to get abandoned in a year. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm happy to be proven wrong, but if it's already twice happened, you don't want a third, you don't want a fourth. This looks bad on everyone. Is it the fault of the fan base? Again, yes and no, because we want Warhammer games, so we're going to try and buy as many Warhammer games as possible. And a lot of us get hyped up, but even then, it's not really the fault of the fan base, because they're buying it because it gets hyped up. I remember during Necromunda Under Hive Wars, this is a game that I was really looking forward to once again. They were promoting it really well. They worked with a lot of YouTubers and the big names and so on, but no issues were talked about and no issues were shown. It was really strange because at least with, say, for example, Total War Warhammer 3, there were issues being shown, whereas there was nothing for Under Hive Wars. It just looked perfect, and that was suspicious. You can't blame all of the developers because some of them are trying their best, they're doing their jobs at the end of the day. The case is sometimes it can be publishers that force a release out early when it should really be delayed until it gets better, until it's in a better state. However, right now, how the gaming world is, it's just not going to happen. So the true fault at everything is just the state of the gaming world. How practices are done now is pretty much affecting not just Warhammer games but everything else, and it leads to garbage releases all around. However, we as Warhammer fans feel it more because we want specific games, and these specific games end up being horrible. Now, I don't claim to know the answer, I'm just a Warhammer YouTuber, but unlike the other people, like, for example, gaming journalists making these types of articles, I don't present to know what can fix this issue. I don't work in games. All I know is I want better Warhammer games all around, because I know that, like the fan base in general, I am one of those fans. I want to see good Warhammer games because I want to play good Warhammer games. But something clearly needs to change just to make sure that we get better games in the future and that the Warhammer series as a video game format thrives as much as possible so we can just have fun. That's the main thing. I just want to have fun. But with that being said, the purpose of this video was to discuss a very obvious issue in the Warhammer video game world and see what you guys think, start a little bit of discussion. I wanted to vent a little bit because I've been going through my Steam list of all the Warhammer games, and it's very few of them that are actually playable. I've not actually discussed every single Warhammer game. I think we might do that in a future video because that would take like a long time. That would easily be a 2, 3, 4 hour video. But it's an issue that I'm getting rather sick of, and hopefully this gets better. I just want to see good Warhammer games. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and let's start a bit of a discussion. But with that, my friends, we've come to the end of our video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, might I suggest giving the video a like, or even subscribing to the channel, as it really does help us out. In the description section below are various links to different social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, and Discord. Also in the description section is an affiliate link with Element Games where you could buy loads of hobby-based products, not just Warhammer, for 10 to 25% off. Making a purchase using that link and also our special code, which is also in the description, supports the channel at no extra cost to you, which we think is rather cool. A big thank you to our patrons. Your support means the world to us. It's amazing that people want to help a small channel like us grow and get to a higher level of content. A big thank you to Gibraltar LUSC, Ryan Bertsche, Andrew Prince, and Okro for subscribing to us at our Fane level. You guys are super cool. And a big thank you to Edward Yule, VS Vasan, Aaron Whitman, and Shaggy for subscribing to us at our King level. Honestly, we can't thank you all enough. And lastly, a big thank you to all of you for liking, sharing, and commenting on these videos. Honestly, it's because of you guys that the channel has been growing at such a great pace lately, so we can't thank you all enough. But with that, my friends, thank you so much for watching once again, and we shall see you all again very, very soon. Have a good day.